All right, let me make sure I've got names right. Billy, Joe, Billy's here. Anthony. Sankata. Okay, I saw Haley already, and Kian. That's how you go. Jason, Haber. Lauren. Okay, you're here. Brian, Jordan. Okay. Caitlin, Lewis. Caitlin's not here. Ashley. Andrea.
Here.
Rambusic. Which, Andrea?
Yeah.
Okay. Giovanni. Laura Schwamberger. Lisa Soltis. There you are.
You leave, it's like, what did I?
And we got Nicole Titus and Arthur Vienna. Joan Voltman. Letitia Washington. Letitia's not here. Pretty good. All right, let me get started today. Let me just overview where we're going to go today and check in how you're doing. So my plan today is for us to go over 2 chapters of Griffin. We're going to work on the Spiral of Silence chapter, and we're going to work on the Adaptive Structuration chapter. So hopefully you've got those under your belt now. We're going to do some large group discussion about it. Then we'll do some small group discussion and report out what we get from those small group discussions. The syllabus had the wrong chapter number on there. I put it in the announcements and I sent an email around. How many of you got the email? All right, they've got it up and running now. It's good. So you got the email. And I also sent an email out around about the MP4 files for the lecture. So,
cool.
You know, if you want them, they're there. Whatever, we'll try to keep up with that through the semester. It gives you something to refer back to. Probably not something your friends want to sit and watch, but it's there. So the MP4s are up. All right, do you have any questions so far about what we're doing?
The correction you made on the syllabus for
Yeah.
the chapter, the correction was chapter 15, right?
Well, it went to the chapter 18. It was said in the syllabus 15.
You corrected it to 8.
But it was corrected to 18.
Okay.
So you should have read the Adaptive or the Spiral of Silence one. Yeah. Yeah, Spiral of Silence. Just read the name of the theory. If that doesn't match up, go with the name instead of with the other part. All right, so are we ready to get underway? All right. So remember, this is a course in theories of human communication. And I said that theories intend to do a couple of things. In fact, there are 4 things that we're going to repeat over and over again that theories are meant to do. Anybody remember some of those? Joan, you remember?
Yes, describe.
Okay, one at a time. So describe. One of the things theories are meant to do is to try to describe what's going on in communication behaviors. So we are trying to be people who watch carefully what goes on in communication, and we want to be able to describe it. So we're going to be trying to look very carefully at exactly what's happening here, what's going on. Those of you who may take a course in ethnography or ethnographic description will understand this. You know, people who are anthropologists go to other countries and they try to describe what people do. Or they look at cultures in America and they try to describe very carefully. So we're careful observers of what goes on. So that's one thing theories do. How about another part of it, right?
Explain.
Okay, so the theories try to explain. Now, when you try to explain something, what is it you're trying to do? It's an odd question, but let's work with it for a minute. What are you trying to do when you try to explain something to somebody? Somebody says, "Explain that to me." And what are you trying to do? Anybody, Prudence?
Well, trying to understand what's underneath it, or maybe what's causing it.
Okay, yeah, underlying causes. One of the words we use and the book uses from time to time is mechanisms. So what is the motivation or the dynamic or the mechanism that's operating here. The theories that we look at today will talk about you see behavior, you describe communication behavior, but we think there's something underneath it going on. Where's this coming from? So we want to get at the mechanisms that are driving it. So what's beneath this? So we want to explain it in terms of, well, the reason this is happening is because, bang. And when you say that, you're explaining what's going on. So we want to try to explain what's going on. All right, 2 more. Anybody else have them? Predict. Okay, we want to be able to predict so that when we start to see something developing, or when we see these conditions in place, we say, you know what's going to happen pretty soon here, or I've seen this before, and I predict that this is going to happen again. So that becomes useful for you because you can then watch out for things that are going to happen. So we're going to describe, we're going to explain, we're going to predict, and then finally, I gave a 4th one. We're going to try to transform, or some people say control, or some people say influence. Whatever you want to, however you want to say it, it's to be active in reshaping what goes on. So if you come home, for instance, late, if you're living at home and you come home late, it's highly likely that you can predict what's going to happen in a conversation with a parent, if that's the situation you're in, and they want to know where you are and what's going on. And so because you can predict that, you're able now to begin to transform what's going to happen by using some different speech acts in that situation. Instead of getting into the same no-win circular argument, you can try to change your communication behaviors and influence the direction it's going to go. So theories give you handles to reshape where things are going. Because I understand this, now I can predict, and now I'm going to change what's going to happen in conversation. Some of your reflections that you sent me were about that you observed things going on, you predicted what would happen, and you changed your behaviors to change the outcome. So that's applying theory. So that's what we're about in this class. Now this week and next week are all theories about silence. Okay, they're all theories about people who either don't speak or don't get the chance to speak. And so we're going to be struggling through this week and next week, the question of why is it, what's going on when there are things that need to be said, things that people want to say, but they don't say them. Now let's just start off by thinking in general about why is that a problem? We as communication scholars are interested in problems. And so we want to know what's going on with this communication problem and what can we do about it. So someone give me an idea, what's the problem that people get silenced, or they are afraid to speak up, or they don't say things? What's the problem with that? All right, let's start.
The fact of what's going to happen if you do say it.
Okay, well, that's not the concept. What I want now is the consequences of being silent. What happens when there is that silence? So let's think about that. Letitia?
Things don't change.
Okay, so part of our assumption, our working assumption, is that in order for things to get better, or things to improve, this is an assumption we make, mind you now. In order for things to improve in society and families and in small groups, there are things that need to be said that there are things pushing against it. Okay, so for positive change, we'll say, that there are things that need to be said. Can someone give me an example of a situation where something needs to be said in order to create a positive change? Let's Anthony.
Two people are in an argument, one person is going to try to fix the situation by speaking up.
Okay, so if people are having an argument, one person may be afraid to say something that would be important in the argument. Okay, and so they have to bring out some information or bring out a statement about themselves that will help shape that argument. We talk about people being honest in arguments. Anybody take an interpersonal comm yet? Yeah, right. So you talk about iMessages and you talk about ways to create non-defensive settings for communication. All right, so in an argument between two. Another example where a positive change is not going to happen unless somebody speaks through this barrier. Keen.
I was going to say an employer and an employee. If an employee is doing what the employer doesn't want, then the employer needs to let the employee know
Okay,
in order to
yes.
change that.
So you can have a situation where a supervisor may not want, for some reason, to tell an employee something, and they don't know what's expected of them. So there's a silence that's damaging to the situation, the organizational situation. All right, so positive change. What else do we believe is important about hearing the voices that are present in a situation? John?
I was going to say that I say it out like it is. I'm that type of a person.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm surrounded by a lot of people that kind of keep things in. And I know if they're not talking to me, I can't deal with their side of the problem.
Okay.
I don't know where they're coming from.
All right, so you want to remove some confusion. There's confusion because there are things that are not being said into the situation. All right. Now, we're headed into a very political year and a half here, right? We, as an American society, are headed into the presidential elections in November, right, of, what's that? 08, right, yeah, so it's still a ways away. And as we face that, as you face that, you are going to feel pressures about what opinion you hold. You're going to feel this sense of what is called public opinion. Right? Now, let's just try to get a grip on this. Where do you figure out what public opinion is? How do you know? And anyway, what is public opinion? Let's kind of get at public opinion.
Majority.
All right, it could be majority of people. Let's get some other folks. When you think of public opinion, what do you think of?
Where you stand in the public's eye on certain...
Okay, where certain people stand, what most people think about them, what people are saying.
George Bush's approval rating.
Okay, George Bush's approval rating is a matter of public opinion. And so when you have this issue of public opinion, there are things that you feel free to voice and things you don't feel free to voice. Okay, and so this is where we're at in this first chapter. Now, before we get into it, why is it an issue in this next year if people feel like they can't voice their views? Let's say that there's a public opinion out there that kind of is one way about the political situation, about different candidates and different people. And you're feeling awkward about saying something that doesn't go with that. Why is there a problem? Why is there a problem?
You won't be able to find other people that may feel the same way that you do. So you don't have that kind of safety in numbers feeling that you could have.
Okay, so if a person doesn't speak a word that is counter to the prevailing public opinion, they will not find other people who might share that opinion. All right, so there's one issue. What's another issue with it this coming year?
There's so much at stake in terms of national security, the loss of lives, and there's just so much at stake right now that if people don't express themselves, think the risk is that positive change would not occur.
But what if those people, as soon as they speak up, other people boo them, they put pressure on them, they tell them shut up?
That's difficult. I mean, it's difficult for me to understand why someone would be reticent to express their opinion, because it's not me at all. I intellectually understand what you're saying.
Right.
I just have a hard time really grasping.
Yeah. Well, part of the problem is you're growing into, or you're living through all of these talk shows, radio talk shows, and television shows, where people yell at each other a great deal. They don't talk to each other a great deal. They don't listen to each other. I don't know if you watch any of these shows, but it's really frustrating for me to watch it, because I want to hear what someone says, but then someone cuts them off or says, well, that's ridiculous, and undermines them. But part of the deal for us is, if we're living into this democratic society where we say that in order for us to make informed decisions, we need to hear all the voices. We need to hear all the possible things. And that doesn't happen because people get silenced. So that's our first chapter. We're going to look at this issue of the spiral of silence. Now, I am not going to put words up on the PowerPoint. I'm going to put images up. And I'm going to lecture, or I'm going to walk through with you the lecture notes that Griffin puts up on his website. So you don't have to copy down a whole lot of stuff. If you want to print out ahead of time Griffin's lecture notes, you just go to his website, afirstlook.com, and you go to the chapter we have, and it says Instructor's Manual, and you click on that button, and up comes a PDF with 3 to 12 pages of outline and lecture notes. So you don't need to copy down a huge amount of text. I'm going to try to use these images to kind of spark off some memory, to mark off some things for you about what these theories are about. So what I want to do first is to walk through the images that I have. I have about 10 or 12 images that I think relate to this chapter. I'm going to go through them, and I'm going to start it over again. And then I want you to reflect to me some of what you saw in those images before we go into the thing. All right, so let me walk through these images. Not going to say anything. I just want you to let the images have an impression. All right, so this is an image. Let me get that going again. All right, what things did the images evoke for you as I went through this? What kind of feelings, what kind of thoughts did it evoke for you?
It's like isolation.
Okay. So some of the images evoke this sense of isolation. Do you remember which one felt that way for you? All right, and this one. This one,
Even his head's
visual image.
Having thinking about a lot of things, but not necessarily expressing it.
Okay. So the images get us into the idea of the difference between thinking and expressing.
A lot of people wear like a metaphoric mask. They don't let their true self show.
Yeah, it was a nice image, I thought. Right. This person sitting there with a mask,
darkness.
looking thoughtful about, can I speak out here? what is going to happen. Other images, feelings?
Just the, like, bullied silence, like whether it was the kids kind of pointing and laughing, or like
All right.
the mouth
Sewn shut, right.
This like really aggressive images of forced
Right.
silence.
Forced silence. Right.
I thought it was kind of interesting. You showed the same one twice, but like from a different angle.
Right.
This one, it was like the one was more centered on the person or the orange guy,
Right.
and then this one is showing him out of the group.
At a group.
And like the difference in those, I mean, when I look at this one, it was more isolation, you know, more of
Okay.
a sense of exclusion. And then in the other one, because of the focus on just him, it seemed more of escape, like because it was the center of the picture.
Good. All right. Hopefully these images will cement some of the thoughts in your minds as we go through this. Now let's get at this idea of a spiral. The theory that we're working with is called a spiral of silence. Let me see if I can hit one of our...
Stairs were cool.
Yeah, let me hit those. I'll get those up for you. Yep, there we go. All right. Elizabeth Null Newman, talks about this issue that people, she's got a theory of public opinion, about public discourse. And her theory is that people assess the political climate that is going on, and that they, because people then fit into those